Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Teens Biz Talk Podcast. Man, oh man, we are so happy that you stopped by today to listen to this episode. We have someone with us. If you are a creative at all, and I know you are because everyone has some creativity within them. But if you are creative at all, you definitely want to listen to today's episode just to hear some tips, tricks, ways, situations, things, avenues of how you can express that creativity. So, you don't want to go anywhere. You definitely want to make sure you're listening. Today's episode is being brought to you by Bateman Empowering Educators. At Bateman Empowering Educators, we take away the trial and error method of your teenager learning about money and business and replace it with a practical blueprint to help them create their very own five-star financial future. So make sure you check down below, see our information, how you can connect with us, all that fun stuff. Also, while you're here, please go ahead, like, and subscribe so you do not miss not one of our wonderful episodes. Okay, now we've gotten all that out the way. Our guest for today is none other than the Mr. Al Smith. Al is a former high school teacher. He is the founder of Purpix Media. He is a full-time filmmaker, and he is the author of the newly released book, Lights, Camera, College, Your Path to Filmmaking Success. Hello, Al. How are you today?
Absolutely fantastic. How are you?
I am well. Thank you so much for taking time to come and talk to our community. We are super grateful.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I,
Thank you
I
for having
just Oh, sure. So I just gave us some things about you, um,
me.
but would you mind just expanding on one or two or all of them? Just giving us a little bit more detail about what you do.
Sure, sure. So thank you for all of the wonderful things you said. I appreciate it. So I'm a filmmaker and I'm an educator. Purpix Media is a company that I founded a couple of years ago. And so what we focus on is just really just creating positive imagery of people of color. Um, we have several initiatives. Our flagship initiative is called One Day Film School, where me, along with a band of filmmakers, we travel the country and we go to various high schools and colleges and we teach students filmmaking in like 4 hours. So we'll bring our lights, we'll bring our cameras, and we'll bring switchboards and audio boards and all of that good stuff. And we have them create a fake TV show, right? So, like, for instance, might be like 25 students. And I'm like, okay, Tara, you're gonna be the director. I'm like, I don't know what a director does. I'm like, figure it out, right? So I'll give you about 5 minutes, and then you kind of scramble and we do it. And then I'm like, okay, so what did you learn? I'm like, well, I learned about people management. I'm like, okay, what else did you learn? And then so the next person after we rotate, they've learned all of the mistakes of the previous person, so they know not to make those mistakes,
Oh,
right? So
okay.
and so that's kind of how that whole thing works. And then we produce and direct various short films, a lot of it dealing with like social issues.
Great. Man, that sounds like fun.
It
Wow. And
is. I wake up every day just really, really excited about life and just having the autonomy and the freedom to kind of pick and choose what my day is going to look like. So I'm a highly, highly creative person. And so some days I'll write, just for this book. Or like yesterday, we're in the process of creating a short film called Before Sundown. And it's about Sundown Town. So it's a fictional story
mm,
placed in the 1950s. So like I was on Facebook Marketplace, like trying to find the 1950s telephone booth, and like I just love it. I have
wow.
to laugh.
Wow. Oh, I'm writing that down. I want to make sure I know when that one comes out. Woo. Uh, so um, in light of what you do and being a creative, right, and being able to choose to a certain extent kind of how your day flows,
Yeah.
and getting so many other things done and accomplished. I would imagine that being disciplined is a big part of you getting done what needs to be done. Can you just speak a little bit more about that, about discipline and maybe time management and how they tie in together?
Yeah, I really focus on being disciplined. Um, I some days I get it right, and there's other days it's just out the window. One thing that I do is I keep a journal. As a matter of fact, it's right in front of me right now, right? And I write down either in the evening or the morning of what things I want to accomplish for the day. So like I'll have like two or three big things that if I get those accomplished for the day, then I've done pretty well. But if not, then I'll just carry it on to the next day. Um, Also, I don't, I'm a filmmaker, but I don't watch a lot of TV. Like when I do watch TV, it's movies, or I'm married with four kids, so like if it's like family movie night where we're sitting down watching the movie together. But outside of that, I really don't watch TV. It steals your time. I'm not really big on social media. I mean, I have handles and all that good stuff, but I don't spend hours and hours just scrolling through. I'm very cognizant of my time. I have four kids, so like my time is very, very limited. Just we were having a conversation earlier, so like in between picking kids up and dropping them off at practices and all that stuff, like I have a very finite amount of time to get things done. So I'm very cognizant of that, and so that kind of helps me be a little bit more successful.
Wow. Um, so you mentioned one thing that you journal, and I would imagine that's also just helpful as a creative for you to constantly be generating ideas and things of that nature.
Mhm.
How might other young people find outlets to express themselves? But so when I say that, for some people, journaling and just writing, right, or spelling and things like that are challenging. And so,
Mhm.
what are some other ways that they could just have an outlet to express themselves?
Well, I mean, we can stay on writing a second. And
Okay.
when I say writing, it's just for you. It's not necessarily for anybody else. So if it's something that, your own language, if it's all, misspelled words or whatever, it's something that you can remind yourself of, hey, this is me and this is what I want to do. I'm not a really big component of I'm not a big advocate of using the notes on your phone because it's a distraction. You'll get a notification and like, oh, wait a minute, and then you go back like, what was I typing? I was doing something. Like
Yes.
squirrel, right? So I'm really really a big advocate of writing it down and making it plain. Like don't make it really really elaborate. Just hey, this is what I want to do. These are my visions. And sometimes I keep it like by my bedside because I'll wake up in the middle of the night with the fantastic idea. I'm like, oh my gosh, let me write this down. I write it down and then I go back to sleep. And then the next day I'm like, oh man, that is a good idea. So then that allows me to kind of flush it out a little bit more, or I'm like, oh, that was kind of stupid. I'm like, okay, next page, just flip it over and just keep it going. I get
Okay.
inspired by a lot of different things. Yeah. I mean, if it's taking pictures on your phone or if it's conversations, or music. There's times where I'm like, hey, can you push rewind on that? And I'll just hit my record button on my phone and then I'll revisit it later. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was an amazing song. Like this inspires me to write more about the 1950s or whatever.
Mm, great. Okay. So that actually another question I was going to ask, and you just answered that. What are some ways that people can kind of feed that creativity, right? Because usually our environments of every day, like school, right, conversation we were having earlier, don't really promote the creativity, right? They don't really promote using your imagination.
Right.
So thank you though for giving us even some basic ways that we can encourage our creativity, right? With the music, we hear a
Mhm.
song, not just saying, oh, that was a nice song, but being intentional and saying, oh, well, let
Hmm.
me record it, right? So I can go back to and listen to that. Or even like you're
Yeah.
saying, keeping a journal by your bed. So when you get an idea, not just, oh, that's good. I'll write it down in the morning when I wake up, because we know usually by the morning
Right. You'll forget.
it's
Yep.
gone.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
gone. Okay. So you mentioned that something that you all do is the 1 day film school, and you go
Mhm.
to different schools. Do you ever do something like that for the community? Like, do you ever have an event, maybe at the local YMCA or the local Boys and Girls Club?
Yeah. So January, no, I'm sorry, early February, we've set an agreement with the Children's Museum of Indianapolis, and we're doing a 4-day workshop. So the people in the community that are interested in filmmaking or a career in filmmaking will have some projects to kind of get them engaged and to introduce the world of media to them. I mean, they already know about it, but just in a more formal way and how they can be productive with it.
Great. Wow. That is super helpful. I'm sure they're going to enjoy that. Another question that I had, so you just published a book, and congratulations on that. As mentioned earlier, it's called, I know, woo, right? Camera College, Your Path to Filmmaking Success. So can you just talk a little bit about what was the inspiration for that book? Were there any challenges that came up while you were writing it?
Yeah,
There we go.
I'm looking at it right now. It's my inspiration for the day. Um, yeah, so this was birthed about, let's see, 1992. How many years ago is 1992? Like 30, 32 years or something like that. So this was birthed my senior year in high school. I was as a senior, you have to meet your counselor to talk about, future direction, what you want to do with your life and all that good stuff. So mine wasn't very pleasant. So I went to my counselor, and he asked me, he's like, okay, Mr. Smith, what do you want to do? Like, I want to become a filmmaker. And he looked at me, he's like, no. I was like, well, I want I want to be a filmmaker. I want to go to college. I want to go to college. Back then they called it telecommunications, but now it's media, new media, whatever. But the principles are all the same. I'm like, well, I want to go to school and I want to be a filmmaker. And he's like, nah, you shouldn't do that. You're good with your hands. Why don't you like take up a trade and do something with your hands? And I looked at him like, wow, like I want to go to college, but you're discouraging me not to. So I went home. I told my mom, I'm like, yeah, I just met with my counselor and he told me I shouldn't go to college. And she's like, really? Okay. I'll be up there tomorrow. I'm like, well, I got it. Like, don't come up and embarrass me. Like,
Because that's what we do.
he's like, yeah. He's like, you sure, baby? I'm like, I'm okay. Right. But just imagine if I didn't have that support. You know what I'm saying? Like, what if my parents weren't around, like, and I just listened to this guy? And by the way, I mean, the school was about maybe like 1,000, 1,500. So we had about 300 graduating seniors. So I'm sure his course load was a lot, but still, I mean, he's like, you're good with your hands. I'm like, dude, I've only met with you like 3 times. How you know I'm good with my hands? Like, a deeper conversation, right?
Yes.
So yeah, yeah. So I ended up graduating and I went to Indiana University and I got my degree for in telecommunications. And so I still wanted to do it, but there wasn't really an outlet. Like I'm in the middle of the Midwest and there aren't a lot of movie making opportunities. Right. So I picked the next best thing was marketing, right? So create brand stories for corporations and different things like that. So that's kind of where my path led me. So and then that's where we met. I got my MBA at Clark Atlanta in marketing, right?
All right.
CAU. And worked at several Fortune 500s. And man, one day coming home from the job, I came from an environment where enough was never enough. Like every Monday, sales reports came out and like, okay, sales are down. What are you doing about it? Like, I'm like, dude, there was a blizzard in Denver. Like, there's nothing we can do about it. But they don't want to hear that, right?
Right.
So I just, finally I'm like, you know what? I 16 years, like I'm tired of bouncing around. I'm tired of, I've been laid off. I've been downsized. I've been fired. Like all of whatever the end result of not having a job, right? The nice way and the not so nice ways, right? And so finally, I just like, you know what? I'm unhappy anyway. Like, why should I just continue to put myself through this torment? I'm like, I'm done. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I was working like a gazillion hours and wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't see my kids. Like, I'm like, why are you doing this? This is insanity. This is insanity. Like, why, but I still wanted to make films, but I didn't know like an avenue. I had these degrees and all this stuff, but my passion was filmmaking. And so like I'm like, okay, so what are you gonna do in the time, for of you, you're leaving this industry? Like, how are you gonna support your family and all that good stuff? And um I was led to teach. Like I when I was doing my MBA, I would substitute teach at a local high school there in Atlanta. And I absolutely loved it. Like loved it. I fell in love with the kids, but like I'm still getting my MBA. I'm like,
Mhm.
I gotta at least, let this make sense. Let me, go ahead and do the corporate thing if I did that. So I'm like, well, you know what? Let me just teach while I figure out like what this filmmaking thing looks like. So I taught here in Indianapolis at a township school, predominantly African American. And the need was algebra, right? So as African Americans, we struggle with analytics. So I'm like, you know what? I'll teach algebra. I struggled with it growing up. So I'm like, you know what? I understand where they're coming from. So let me just try to make it plain for them. Did that. I loved it. And during that time, I was buying